My name is Morgan Reynolds, and at 29, I thought I knew everything about managing money as a financial analyst. I grew up being the responsible one in my family, always helping out when times got tough. When my parents asked to borrow my gold credit card for a $5,000 online payment, I handed it over without hesitation. I trusted them completely. 3 weeks later, I discovered my account nearly emptied, my siblings flashing expensive new purchases, and my parents laughing about leaving just $1 on my card. Before I continue, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button to join me on this financial roller coaster ride. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood on the outskirts of Chicago shaped my perspective on money from an early age. Our family never struggled for necessities, but luxuries were carefully budgeted and saved for. I watched my parents balance checkbooks at the kitchen table, clip coupons from Sunday papers, and discuss monthly expenses in hushed tones after my siblings and I went to bed. These early lessons in financial responsibility stuck with me, becoming the foundation for my future career. After graduating high school with honors, I earned a scholarship to Northwestern University, where I majored in finance and economics. College wasn't all smooth sailing, though. I worked part-time jobs throughout my 4 years, sometimes juggling 2 or 3 positions simultaneously during summer breaks. The campus coffee shop in the mornings, the university library in the afternoons, and weekend shifts at a local restaurant taught me the value of hard work and disciplined saving. My dedication paid off when I landed an entry-level position at a prestigious financial firm in downtown Chicago immediately after graduation. Over the next 7 years, I climbed the corporate ladder through late nights, weekend work, and consistently exceeding performance targets. Now, as a senior financial analyst, I take pride in my perfect credit score and carefully cultivated financial reputation. My younger siblings took different paths. Amber, now 24, always had an eye for fashion and luxury, spending money as quickly as she earned it. Throughout high school, she worked at the mall specifically to get employee discounts at clothing stores. In college, she majored in fashion merchandising but struggled with student loan payments after graduation. Her apartment always featured the latest trendy decor items, despite her entry-level salary at a boutique marketing agency. Ryan, 26, is the adventure seeker in our family. Always restless, he bounced between college majors before settling on business administration, graduating 2 years behind his peers. His spending typically revolves around experiences and equipment for his latest hobbies, from expensive camera gear during his photography phase to high-end camping equipment when he discovered hiking. He works as a sales representative for a sports equipment company, a job that suits his outgoing personality, but provides inconsistent income through its commission structure. Our family dynamic shifted dramatically 5 years ago when Dad lost his job of 20 years during a company-wide downsizing. The manufacturing plant where he worked as a floor manager closed with minimal notice, leaving him with a modest severance package and uncertainty about future employment at age 55. Mom had always worked part-time as an administrative assistant at a local dental office, but her income wasn't enough to cover our family's expenses. That difficult period cemented my role as the family's financial safety net. I helped cover their mortgage for 3 months while Dad searched for work. When he finally found a position, it came with a significantly lower salary, forcing my parents to adjust to a new financial reality. I co-signed when they needed to refinance their home, lent money for Ryan's final year of college tuition, and helped Amber secure her first apartment by providing the security deposit. Through disciplined saving and careful credit management, I qualified for a premium gold credit card from my bank last year. With its $50,000 limit, comprehensive travel insurance, concierge service, and generous rewards program, the card represented a milestone in my financial journey. The heavy metal card itself symbolized success, earning appreciative glances whenever I placed it on a restaurant table to pay for dinner. I never carried a balance, always paying the full amount due each month to avoid the high interest rate. The call from my parents came on a Tuesday evening in early March. I was preparing dinner in my downtown apartment when Mom's name flashed on my phone screen. "Morgan, sweetheart, we need a huge favor," she began, her voice carrying that distinctive tone she uses when asking for something significant. "Your father and I need to make an online payment for about $5,000, but our credit card limit isn't high enough." "What's the payment for?" I asked, automatically shifting into financial advisor mode. "It's for a special investment opportunity," Dad chimed in from the extension. "Time-sensitive, great returns. We've done our research, but our card won't cover the initial deposit." I hesitated. "Couldn't you split it between your cards?" "The website only takes one payment method," Mom explained quickly. "We just need to borrow your gold card for a couple of days. We'll mail it back to you as soon as the transaction clears. Or you could come for dinner this weekend and pick it up," Dad suggested. "It would be nice to see you anyway. You've been so busy with work lately." The guilt trip worked as it always did. Between my parents' assurances about repayment and the prospect of a home-cooked meal, I agreed. The next morning, I slipped my gold card into an envelope and dropped it in the mail on my way to work, expecting to have it back by the following week. "Just the one purchase, right?" I confirmed during a quick phone call that evening. "Absolutely," Mom promised. $5,000, that's it. "We appreciate this so much, Morgan. We raised a good one," Dad added proudly. "Always looking out for family." As I hung up the phone, I felt that familiar warm glow of being the reliable daughter, the successful one who could help when needed. Little did I know that decision would lead to one of the most shocking discoveries of my adult life. The week after sending my credit card to my parents turned unexpectedly chaotic at work. Our team was tasked with analyzing a potential acquisition target for one of our biggest clients, requiring extensive financial modeling and due diligence review. I found myself staying at the office until 9 or 10 each night, ordering dinner at my desk and falling into bed exhausted when I finally made it home. By Friday, when my parents had promised to mail back my credit card, I was so consumed with finalizing our analysis that I barely remembered to check my mailbox. When no envelope waited for me, I made a mental note to call them over the weekend, but didn't think much of it. Perhaps there had been a delay with the postal service, or they had simply forgotten in the rush of completing their important transaction. Saturday afternoon, between catching up on laundry and personal errands, I finally called my parents' landline. Mom answered on the fourth ring, sounding slightly breathless. "Oh, the card. I'm so sorry, honey. Your father was supposed to mail it on Thursday, but he completely forgot. We've been so busy this week." "No problem," I replied, though a faint uneasiness began to stir. "Did you complete the transaction you needed it for?" "Yes, all taken care of," she assured me quickly. "We'll definitely get it in the mail on Monday, promise." "Or I could drive out and pick it up tomorrow," I suggested. "It's been a while since I visited anyway." "Tomorrow's not good," Mom responded, a little too quickly. We have church and then lunch with the Petersons. How about next weekend instead? I'll make your favorite lasagna." Though slightly puzzled by her evasiveness, I agreed and hung up. Sunday passed in a blur of meal prep for the week and finalizing some reports for Monday morning meetings. By Tuesday, with no card arriving in my mail, the first real flicker of concern ignited in my mind. I sent a text to Dad asking about the card, receiving only a brief response. "Sorry, kiddo. Still need it for a few more days. Small complication with the investment." Wednesday evening brought a group text from Mom to the family chat. "Family dinner this Saturday at 6. Everyone please come. Special announcement to share." Curious about the announcement and increasingly eager to retrieve my credit card, I immediately confirmed my attendance. Ryan responded with a thumbs-up emoji, while Amber sent an enthusiastic "can't wait," followed by several exclamation points. Saturday evening, I arrived at my parents' suburban home with a bottle of wine and growing curiosity. As I walked up the familiar concrete path to the front door, I noticed subtle changes to the property. The porch furniture looked new, the cushions a bright teal color that hadn't been there during my last visit. The doorbell had been replaced with a sleek video model I didn't recognize. Mom greeted me with a warm hug that smelled of her signature perfume and the garlic from whatever was cooking in the kitchen. As she led me inside, more changes caught my eye. The living room featured a new leather sectional sofa where the old fabric couch had been, and a larger television now dominated the entertainment center. "Did you redecorate?" I asked casually, setting the wine on the kitchen counter. "Just a few updates," Mom replied, stirring something on the stove. "The old couch was falling apart, and your father found a good deal on the TV." Dad emerged from the basement, giving me a hearty hug. "There's my financial wizard. How's work treating you?" "Busy but good," I answered, glancing around. "Looks like things are going well for you too as well." "Can't complain," he said with a wink. "Life has a way of working out." Before I could inquire about my credit card, the front door burst open and Amber breezed in. My sister looked particularly polished, wearing what appeared to be a new designer dress and carrying a handbag I recognized from a luxury brand's recent collection. Her hair had been freshly highlighted, and she wore a pair of sunglasses pushed up on her head that I was almost certain cost more than her usual monthly budget for clothing. "Morgan," she squealed, air-kissing both my cheeks. "Don't you look professional?" Always the serious one. Throughout dinner, I noticed Amber constantly checking her phone, smiling secretively at the screen. When I asked what had her so engaged, she merely shrugged and said, "Just confirming plans for next weekend." The conversation flowed from topic to topic, carefully avoiding anything financial. Whenever I tried to steer toward the subject of my credit card or their investment, one of my parents would quickly change the subject to neighborhood gossip or Ryan's absence. "Where is Ryan anyway?" I finally asked as Mom served dessert. "He texted he's running late," Dad replied. "Said he'd try to make it for coffee." As if on cue. We heard the rumble of an engine outside, followed by the slam of a car door. Moments later, Ryan strolled in, looking windblown and exhilarated. "Sorry I'm late," he announced, grabbing a dessert plate without sitting down. "Got caught up with something cool." Throughout coffee and dessert, I made 2 more attempts to ask about my credit card, each time met with deflection. As the evening wound down with no card returned and no explanation offered, the uneasiness I'd been feeling crystallized into genuine concern. "I really need my credit card back," I finally stated directly as I prepared to leave. "I have some business expenses coming up next week." "Oh, sweetie, I forgot to mention," Mom said, walking me to the door. "We still need to mail it. I'll send it priority first thing Monday morning." "You've been saying that for 2 weeks now," I pointed out, trying to keep frustration from my voice. "Morgan will take care of it," Dad assured me, his tone carrying a hint of dismissal that was unusual when addressing me. "Trust us, okay?" I left without my gold card, a sense of disquiet following me all the way home. The next morning, a text from Ryan appeared on my phone. "Hey sis, got something awesome to show you. Coffee at Westfield Plaza tomorrow? 2 p.m. at Java Junction." The unusual invitation only deepened my growing suspicion that something strange was happening with my family. What I couldn't possibly anticipate was just how bizarre things were about to become. The following day, I arrived at Java Junction a few minutes before our scheduled meeting time. The popular coffee shop at Westfield Plaza buzzed with Sunday afternoon energy, patrons hunched over laptops or engaged in animated conversations over steaming mugs. I secured a table near the window, ordering a latte while I waited for Ryan. At precisely 2:10 p.m., I heard it before I saw it, a distinctive engine sound that made several heads turn toward the large windows. A sleek, cherry-red Ducati motorcycle pulled into a parking space directly in my line of sight. The rider, clad in black leather and a matching helmet, smoothly dismounted and removed his headgear, revealing my brother's grinning face. My jaw literally dropped. Ryan had been talking about wanting a motorcycle for years, but this wasn't some used starter bike. Even with my limited knowledge of motorcycles, I recognized this as a premium model that easily cost north of $15,000. Ryan had been complaining about his rent increase just last month. lamenting that he might need to find a roommate to split costs. He sauntered into the coffee shop, helmet tucked under one arm, clearly enjoying the admiring glances from other patrons. Spotting me by the window, his grin widened as he pulled out the chair across from mine. "So, what do you think?" he asked without preamble, gesturing toward the motorcycle outside. "I think that's a very expensive bike for someone who was worried about making rent 4 weeks ago," I replied carefully. "Fortune favors the bold, sis," he said with a wink. "Sometimes you've got to take a leap. A $15,000 leap. Closer to 20, actually. It's the Panigale V4S model. Carbon fiber components, racing suspension, the works." I nearly choked on my latte. $20,000? Ryan, where did you get that kind of money? He shrugged, suddenly very interested in studying the menu board above the counter. Good timing, smart choices. Hey, I'm going to grab a coffee. Want a refill? Before I could press further, he was up and in line at the counter. My mind raced, trying to make sense of this sudden windfall. Ryan's sales job paid primarily on commission, and while he occasionally had good months, nothing that would justify this kind of extravagant purchase. As I sat pondering this mystery, another familiar face appeared at the coffee shop entrance. Amber pushed through the door, shopping bags clutched in both hands. Designer bags, I noted, from boutiques in the high-end section of the mall. She spotted me and wavered visibly before plastering on a bright smile and heading toward our table. "Morgan, what a coincidence," she exclaimed, though her tone lacked genuine surprise. "Ryan invited me," I explained, gesturing to where our brother stood in line. "Apparently to show off his new motorcycle." "Oh, you've seen it? Isn't it gorgeous?" Amber gushed, setting her shopping bags beside the empty chair. "The color is just perfect. Almost as perfect as that new Prada bag you're carrying," I observed. "And those look like Jimmy Choo shoeboxes." Amber's hand unconsciously touched the sleek leather handbag hanging from her shoulder. "This old thing? I've had it forever. The spring collection just released last month, Amber." A flash of discomfort crossed her face before Ryan returned with his coffee and a refill for me. The tension at our table was palpable as my siblings exchanged quick glances. "So," I said, placing my hands flat on the table, "either you two won the lottery without telling me, or something very strange is going on. Which is it?" Another silent exchange between them, then Ryan sighed. "Look, it's not a big deal. Mom and Dad wanted to do something nice for us." "Mom and Dad," I repeated slowly. "The same mom and dad who needed to borrow my credit card because they couldn't afford a $5,000 payment?" Amber suddenly became very interested in arranging her shopping bags. "They said they wanted to thank us for being patient during the tough times. You know, when Dad lost his job and everything. With a $20,000 motorcycle and what looks like $5,000 in designer goods." My voice had risen enough that a couple at the next table glanced over curiously. "They said they came into some money," Ryan offered weakly. "Some investment paid off big." A horrible suspicion began forming in my mind. "When exactly did they tell you about this windfall?" "About 2 weeks ago," Amber admitted. "Right after they borrowed your credit card." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Without another word, I pulled out my phone and opened my credit card app. I hadn't checked the account in weeks, trusting my parents implicitly. The balance displayed on the screen confirmed my worst fears: $49. 783 of my $50,000 limit had been charged. The room seemed to tilt as I stared at the number. I felt physically ill, a cold sweat breaking out across my forehead as I struggled to breathe normally. "Morgan? Are you okay?" Ryan's voice sounded distant through the rushing in my ears. "Did you know?" I whispered, looking up at my siblings. "Did you know they were using my card for all this?" Their uncomfortable expressions answered before their words could. "Not at first," Amber admitted. "They told us they'd come into some money. It wasn't until after I'd already bought everything that Mom mentioned using your card. She said you'd agreed to it," Ryan added quickly. "That you were helping them establish better credit by letting them make some purchases. They promised they'd pay you back with interest." I scrolled through the transactions with trembling fingers, $22,340 at a car dealership, $19,875 at a motorcycle shop, $5,430 at various designer boutiques, and numerous smaller charges at furniture stores, electronics retailers, and restaurants. I need to go, I managed to say, gathering my purse and phone. Right now. Morgan, wait. Amber reached for my arm. I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding. I yanked my arm away. A $50,000 misunderstanding? They lied to me, and you two went along with it. They're planning to pay you back, Ryan insisted. They mentioned some big surprise for you too. The only surprise I'm interested in is getting my card back and hearing them explain why they thought it was okay to commit credit card fraud against their own daughter. I stormed out of the coffee shop, fumbling for my car keys with shaking hands. Behind me, I could hear Ryan and Amber calling my name, but I didn't turn back. As I started my car, I pulled out my phone and dialed my parents' number, my heart pounding in my chest. Dad answered on the second ring, sounding cheerful. Morgan, we were just talking about you. I need to see you and Mom. Now. My voice sounded strange even to my own ears, tight with controlled fury. Everything okay, kiddo? You sound upset. I just saw Ryan's new motorcycle and checked my credit card statement. I'm coming over right now. A long pause followed, then Dad's voice, notably less cheerful. All right. We'll be here. The 15-minute drive to my parents' house felt like hours as my mind cycled through confusion, hurt, and rage. The people I trusted most in the world, the ones who had taught me financial responsibility, had betrayed me in the most fundamental way. By the time I pulled into their driveway, seeing both Ryan and Amber's cars already there, I had worked myself into a state of cold fury that left no room for tears. I parked behind Amber's car, blocking her in, and marched up to the front door without bothering to knock. The new door handle turned smoothly under my grip, another reminder of where my money had gone. The family was assembled in the living room, an impromptu council gathered to face my wrath. Mom and Dad sat side by side on their new leather couch, Amber perched nervously on an armchair and Ryan leaning against the wall, arms crossed defensively. Give me my card back. Now. My voice cut through the room's tense silence. Morgan, honey, let's talk about this calmly, Mom began, her soothing tone igniting rather than dampening my anger. Calmly? You want me to be calm after discovering you've stolen nearly $50,000 from me? Borrowed, Dad corrected, his tone surprisingly casual. We borrowed it. With every intention of paying you back. Without my knowledge or consent. That's called theft, Dad. Or fraud, depending on which law enforcement officer you ask. A strange thing happened then. Something I was entirely unprepared for. My father laughed. Actually laughed, as if I'd told an amusing joke at a dinner party. Mom joined in with a nervous titter. And my siblings exchanged uncomfortable glances. What could possibly be funny about this situation? I demanded, my voice rising. You're overreacting, Dad said, still smiling. It's not like we're strangers who stole your wallet. We're family. Family asks permission before maxing out someone's credit card on luxury purchases. I pulled out my phone and thrust the screen toward them, displaying the statement. $22,000 for a car? Almost $20,000 for Ryan's motorcycle? Designer clothes for Amber? What were you thinking? We were thinking about finally enjoying life a little, Mom replied, her smile fading. After years of struggling, pinching pennies, and watching other people have nice things. At my expense? Without even asking me. Would you have said yes if we had? Dad challenged. Of course not. Not for frivolous luxury items. If you needed help with medical bills or home repairs, that would be different. See? That's why we didn't ask. Dad's tone was matter-of-fact, as if this explained and justified everything. You've always been so rigid about money, Morgan. All work, no enjoyment. I stared at him, speechless. In what universe was financial responsibility a character flaw? We raised you to be responsible, Mom added. And you are, wonderfully so. But sometimes you need to loosen up a little. By committing credit card fraud. I shot back. By trusting that your family knows what they're doing, Dad countered. We have a plan to pay it all back. I don't care about your plan. I want my card back right now. And then I'm calling the credit card company to report fraudulent charges. A flash of concern finally crossed my father's face. Now, hold on. There's no need to go to extremes. Giving my card back is an extreme request. Mom sighed dramatically and nodded to Dad, who reached into his pocket and pulled out my gold credit card, holding it between two fingers like a peace offering. Here, he said, extending it toward me, though there's only about $1 left on it. This triggered another round of inappropriate laughter from my parents. I snatched the card from his hand, examining it closely for the first time in weeks. Something felt off. The weight wasn't quite right, the gold color a touch too yellow. I turned it over, noticing subtle differences in the embossing of my name. And then, in a moment of stunning clarity, I realized what I was holding. A slow, incredulous laugh bubbled up from my chest, surprising everyone in the room, including myself. Morgan, Amber ventured, clearly confused by my sudden shift in mood. I couldn't stop laughing now, tears gathering at the corners of my eyes as the absurdity of the situation hit me full force. What's so funny? Dad demanded, his confident demeanor slipping. This, I managed between gasps of laughter, holding up the card. This isn't my actual credit card. Four confused faces stared back at me. What are you talking about? Ryan pushed away from the wall, stepping closer. That's your gold card. No, I corrected, finally getting my laughter under control. This is a promotional dummy card the bank sent me with marketing materials months ago. It looks similar, but it's not a real credit card. The color drained from my father's face. That's impossible. We used it for purchases. Large purchases. No, you didn't, I said with absolute certainty. Because this isn't a functioning credit card. It's literally a piece of plastic with no magnetic strip or chip. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. But the car, the motorcycle, Amber's shopping. I pulled out my phone again and opened my actual credit card app, turning the screen toward them. Balance, $3,452.16. My regular monthly expenses. No car. No motorcycle. No shopping spree. The room fell into stunned silence as my family processed this revelation. Ryan was the first to recover, his expression shifting from confusion to panic. But I have the motorcycle, he said slowly. The dealership ran the card and gave me the bike. And I have all these clothes, Amber added, gesturing to her designer outfit. The stores processed the payments. I looked between my family members, a new mystery unfolding. If you didn't use my card, how did you pay for everything? The revelation about the dummy card threw the room into chaos. My parents exchanged panicked glances while Ryan paced the living room, running his hands through his hair repeatedly. Amber looked like she might be sick, her face pale beneath her carefully applied makeup. This doesn't make sense, Dad insisted, reaching for the card to examine it more closely. We use this for everything. The car, Ryan's bike, furniture, it all went through. As he turned the dummy card over in his hands, memories clicked into place in my mind. 6 months earlier, I'd received a promotional package from my bank congratulating me on my excellent credit score and pre-approving me for their elite gold card. The fancy envelope had contained marketing materials and a realistic-looking sample card to show the product's premium design and weight. I'd activated my real card over the phone when it arrived separately a week later, tossing both cards into the same drawer in my apartment. I kept both cards in my desk drawer, I explained, the adrenaline from my anger now giving way to confusion. You must have taken the promotional dummy instead of the real one. But that doesn't explain how we made purchases with it, Mom countered, her voice strained. I reached for my phone again, opening my banking app to double-check. All my accounts appeared normal, no unusual activity or excessive withdrawals. My credit card statement showed only my regular expenses, groceries, gas, a few restaurant meals, and my monthly subscription services. Let me see the receipt for the motorcycle, I said to Ryan. He fumbled for his wallet, extracting a folded paper that he handed to me with visible trepidation. I scanned the document, noting the dealership's information, the motorcycle details. And at the bottom, the payment method, financing through Midwest Credit Union. Ryan, this says you financed the motorcycle, I said, looking up at my brother. There's no credit card payment listed here. What? He grabbed the receipt back, studying it with confusion. But Dad handled the payment while I was test riding. He said he used your card. All eyes turned to our father, who suddenly seemed intensely interested in the pattern of the area rug. Dad? I prompted. What's going on here? He cleared his throat, exchanging a look with Mom that contained an entire silent conversation. We might have misrepresented a few things. A few things. I echoed incredulously. We didn't exactly use your card. He admitted finally. We applied for loans in our names. The pieces started falling into place. So you never charged anything to what you thought was my credit card? Well, we tried it first, Mom jumped in. But when the initial transaction was declined, we found other ways to make the purchases. Why continue the charade then? I demanded. Why keep my card and let me believe you were using it? Another uncomfortable silence filled the room before Dad spoke. We didn't want you to feel left out of the family's good fortune. Left out? You let me believe you'd committed fraud against me. It was going to be a surprise, Mom insisted. We were planning to tell you everything during the family vacation we booked for July. Vacation? What vacation? To Maui, Dad said, his enthusiasm returning slightly. 10 days at a beachfront resort. Your ticket is already purchased. My head was spinning with these revelations. So let me get this straight. You borrowed my credit card, discovered it didn't work, arranged your own financing for all these purchases, but continued to pretend you were using my card, all while planning a surprise vacation to tell me about it? Put in those terms, even my parents seemed to recognize the absurdity of their plan. Ryan had stopped pacing and was now leaning against the wall again, looking relieved that he wouldn't have to return his precious motorcycle. Amber was surreptitiously checking the labels in her shopping bags, apparently confirming that her new possessions were safe. I still don't understand where all this money came from, I said. Dad, you've been working at reduced pay for years. Mom's part-time job at the dental office barely covers groceries. How are you financing a car, a motorcycle, designer clothes, and a Hawaiian vacation? My parents exchanged another one of their silent communication glances before Mom sighed and nodded. Your grandmother's inheritance, Dad finally admitted. Grandma Miller? But she passed away 3 years ago. The estate was tied up in probate, he explained. Her house in Florida finally sold 2 months ago, and as her only child, I received the proceeds. The inheritance was substantial, Mom added. Enough to pay off our mortgage. Set aside money for retirement, and yes, indulge a little. I sat down heavily on the nearest chair, trying to process this new information. Why the elaborate ruse with my credit card? Why not just tell me about the inheritance? We were going to, Dad insisted. At first, we wanted to surprise everyone at once. Then when we asked to borrow your card for that initial online payment, it was actually to book the vacation package, but the travel site was having technical issues that day. When we realized we had the wrong card anyway, Mom continued, we decided to stick with the original plan of surprising you all at once. But then Ryan needed a new vehicle since his car was constantly breaking down. And I saw that Ducati at the dealership, Ryan interjected sheepishly. One thing led to another. Dad concluded. We'd planned to come clean about everything during the vacation, presenting it as a celebration of our financial independence and a thank you to you for all your help during the tough years. I closed my eyes, trying to make sense of the tangled web they'd woven. Part of me wanted to laugh at the ridiculous miscommunication, while another part remained hurt that they'd concocted such an elaborate deception. So when you came home with the motorcycle, I said to Ryan, and you with all those shopping bags, I added, looking at Amber, you both genuinely thought Mom and Dad had charged it all to my credit card without my permission. And you went along with it. My siblings had the good grace to look ashamed. They said they had a plan to pay you back, Amber offered weakly. And that you'd get an even bigger surprise later, Ryan added. Neither of which excuses participating in what you thought was credit card fraud, I pointed out. You're right, Ryan admitted. I got caught up in finally having the bike I've wanted forever. I should have questioned it more. Me too, Amber said quietly. The shopping was too tempting to resist. But I knew something felt wrong about it. Feeling emotionally exhausted, I turned back to my parents. I need to understand exactly what happened with my card. If you didn't use it, why keep it for 3 weeks? Mom looked embarrassed now. Honestly, we misplaced it for a while in all the excitement of the inheritance and the purchases. When you started asking for it back more insistently, we found it in your father's sock drawer and realized it was the dummy card. By then, we'd committed to the surprise vacation reveal and decided to stick with our story a little longer. We thought it would make a funny family anecdote someday, Dad added, his tone suggesting he was already reconsidering that assessment. I looked down at the promotional card still in my hand, thinking about the emotional roller coaster of the past few hours. From fear to fury to this strange, deflated feeling of relief mixed with lingering hurt. I need to call the motorcycle dealership, Ryan suddenly announced, pulling out his phone. If we didn't actually use Morgan's card, I need to make sure the financing paperwork is legitimate. This broke the tension in the room, and I found myself laughing again. This time without the edge of hysteria. The situation was so absurd that it had circled back around to being almost funny. Almost. As Ryan stepped outside to make his call, I turned to my parents, still processing the truth behind their strange behavior. So there was never any $5,000 investment opportunity. They shook their heads in unison. And you didn't steal $50,000 from me. Not a penny, Dad confirmed. And there's really a family vacation to Hawaii happening in July. Mom smiled tentatively. Oceanfront rooms. All expenses paid. A thank you for everything you've done for us. I shook my head, amazed at how quickly my understanding of the situation had reversed. You realize this whole misunderstanding could have been avoided if you'd just been honest from the beginning. In retrospect, yes, Dad admitted. We got carried away with the idea of a big surprise. Ryan returned from his call, looking relieved. The financing is legitimate. Dad co-signed for me using the inheritance as collateral. The loan is in my name. Same with my shopping, Amber added. Mom gave me a prepaid credit card loaded with $5,000. The stores ran it as a regular credit card transaction. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place when I turned to my parents. And the car. Paid in full, Dad said proudly. No financing needed. A sensible pre-owned Toyota. Nothing flashy, but reliable. I leaned back in my chair, emotionally drained but relieved. You people are exhausting, you know that. For guilty faces looked back at me, followed by tentative smiles as they realized the worst of my anger had passed. The dummy credit card had led to a real family revelation, one that would take time to fully process. As the initial shock of the credit card revelation subsided, an uncomfortable silence settled over the living room. I examined the faces of my family members, seeing them in a new light after the day's discoveries. The inheritance explained their sudden spending, but not the elaborate deception they'd maintained for weeks. I think we need to talk about what really happened here, I said finally. Beyond the mix-up with the credit card, there's something fundamentally wrong with how this all played out. Mom shifted uncomfortably on the couch. We just wanted to surprise everyone with good news for once. By letting me believe you'd committed fraud, I challenged. By having Ryan and Amber participate in what they thought was unauthorized use of my credit card. When you put it that way, it sounds terrible, Dad admitted. Because it is terrible. I insisted. This goes beyond a simple misunderstanding. This was a breach of trust. The inheritance was supposed to be a fresh start, Mom said quietly. After years of financial stress. Always being the ones who needed help. Always feeling like we were failing as parents, we wanted to be the ones giving for once. Her vulnerability caught me off guard. I'd never considered how my financial success might have affected my parents' self-image, especially after Dad's job loss. How much was the inheritance? I asked. Dad hesitated, then answered. Just over $300,000. I blinked in surprise. That was substantially more than I'd expected. We paid off the mortgage, he continued. Set aside money for retirement. Then decided to use some of it to finally enjoy life a little, and thank you kids for standing by us during the rough years. Why not just tell us that from the beginning? Pride. Mom admitted. For years, we've been the ones needing help, especially from you, Morgan. We wanted to surprise you from a position of strength, not as the financially struggling parents always asking for assistance. So you created this elaborate scheme instead? It wasn't supposed to be elaborate, Dad explained. We were going to announce everything during a nice family dinner, then surprise you with the vacation plans. But when you sent your card and we realized it was a dummy, things got complicated. And you too, I turned to my siblings. You were willing to accept expensive gifts that you thought were fraudulently charged to my account. Amber at least had the grace to look ashamed. They assured us they had a plan to pay you back with interest, and that you were getting an even bigger surprise. That doesn't make it right, I countered. No, it doesn't, Ryan agreed. I got caught up in finally having the bike I've dreamed about for years. I should have asked more questions. We all should have, Amber added. The secrecy created a toxic situation, I said. One where everybody made poor choices because the foundation was built on deception. Dad nodded slowly. You're right. It started with good intentions, but we handled it badly. Very badly, I emphasized. And it makes me wonder what other secrets our family keeps from each other. The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. To my surprise, it was Amber who broke the silence. I'm in therapy, she blurted out. Have been for 6 months. For shopping addiction and anxiety. We all stared at her, surprised by this unexpected confession. The shopping you saw today was actually a controlled splurge my therapist and I planned. A reward for sticking to my budget for 5 consecutive months. Mom knew about it and provided a specific amount I could spend without spiraling. You never told us you were struggling, I said gently. Because you're so perfect with money, she replied without malice. I was embarrassed to admit I couldn't handle my finances when my big sister was some kind of financial prodigy. Her words stung with their honesty. Had my financial responsibility created a standard my siblings felt they couldn't live up to? Ryan cleared his throat. Since we're sharing secrets, I've been taking night classes to get my real estate license. I hate my sales job. But I didn't want to admit I was changing careers again after you all supported me through 3 different college majors. The revelations continued as Mom hesitantly shared that she'd been considering retiring from the dental office to pursue her long-abandoned interest in painting. Dad admitted he'd been researching starting a small handyman business, tired of working under managers who didn't value his experience. As each family member shared their hidden hopes and struggles, I realized how little we truly knew about each other's inner lives. The inheritance had merely been the catalyst that brought our family's communication problems to the surface. I have a confession too, I said when the others had finished. I've been considering leaving Chicago to take a position with a firm in Seattle. A significant promotion. But I've been reluctant to tell you all because I felt responsible for helping if you needed financial support. You shouldn't make career decisions based on us, Dad said firmly. We've leaned on you too much over the years. That's what family does, I replied. We support each other. But support requires honesty. We can't help each other if we're keeping secrets. Mom reached for my hand. We're truly sorry, Morgan. The inheritance was supposed to fix our financial problems, but money doesn't repair communication issues. No, I agreed. That takes actual communication. Where do we go from here? Ryan asked, looking around at all of us. We start with transparency, I suggested. No more secrets, no more surprises. At least not the kind that involve deception. And we need to address the unhealthy patterns in how we deal with money as a family, Amber added with newfound confidence. My therapist says money issues are rarely just about money. They're about values, priorities, and how we express love and respect. That's surprisingly insightful, I told her with a small smile. I have my moments, she replied, returning the smile. Dad stood up, his expression solemn. I want to make this right. All of us. We've been carrying these secrets, thinking we were protecting each other or ourselves, but all we've done is create distance. The inheritance gives us a chance to start fresh, Mom added. Not just financially, but as a family. I'd like that, I said, realizing how much I'd missed having open, honest relationships with my family. Morgan, Dad said seriously. We owe you the biggest apology for the credit card deception. It was wrong, regardless of our intentions. Yes, it was, I agreed, not willing to minimize what they'd done. But I understand the complicated feelings behind it now, at least a little better. Would you consider letting us make it up to you? Mom asked tentatively. I'm not looking for compensation, I clarified. Just honesty moving forward. What about family therapy? Amber suggested. My therapist could recommend someone who specializes in family dynamics. Looking at the hopeful expressions around me, I felt the first genuine stirring of optimism. The inheritance had exposed our dysfunction, but perhaps it could also fund our healing. I think that's an excellent idea, I said. We could all use some help navigating our new financial reality and the emotional undercurrents that come with it. As the conversation continued into the evening, with more confessions, apologies, and tentative plans for the future, I realized that while the credit card mix-up had been resolved, the real work of rebuilding our family's trust was just beginning. The dummy gold card still sat on the coffee table, a plastic reminder of how easily misunderstandings could spiral when built on a foundation of secrecy and assumption. The weeks following our family confrontation brought changes none of us could have anticipated. True to Amber's suggestion, we began attending family therapy sessions with Dr. Patricia Hernandez, a psychologist specializing in family dynamics and financial behaviors. Every Saturday morning, the five of us would gather in her comfortably appointed office to untangle decades of assumptions, expectations, and communication patterns that had led to our credit card fiasco. During our third session, Dr. Hernandez introduced an exercise that proved particularly illuminating. She asked each of us to write down our earliest money memory and how it had shaped our financial attitudes. As we shared our responses, I gained new insight into my family members' relationships with money. Dad described counting coins from his paper route at age 10, determined to save enough for a baseball glove his parents couldn't afford. I learned early that if I wanted something, I had to earn it myself, he explained. Nobody was coming to rescue me financially. Mom's formative experience came from watching her parents fight constantly about bills. I promised myself I'd never let money create that kind of tension in my own marriage, she said. So whenever finances got tight, I'd minimize or hide problems to keep the peace. Ryan recalled being 13 and spending his entire birthday money on an impulse purchase, only to regret it the next day when a video game he'd wanted for months was released. I've been chasing that feeling ever since, he admitted, always thinking the next purchase will finally be satisfying. Amber's story surprised me most. She described how in high school, her unexpected fashion sense had finally earned her acceptance among popular classmates. Clothes became my identity, she explained. When I'm insecure, I still shop to feel worthy of being seen. When my turn came, I shared how I'd witnessed a neighbor's family lose their home during the financial crisis. I was 16, I recalled. Watching them pack their belongings into a rented truck while the children cried made me vow to never be financially vulnerable. These core memories create what I call financial programming, Dr. Hernandez explained. They're the unconscious scripts that drive your money behaviors, often without your awareness. This framework helped us establish new financial boundaries as a family. Dad created a formal inheritance distribution plan with the help of a financial advisor, ensuring transparency about how the money was being managed. Mom started taking art classes, gradually reducing her hours at the dental office as she built confidence in her creative abilities. For my part, I accepted the Seattle job offer. freed from the self-imposed responsibility of being my family's financial safety net. The substantial salary increase and lower tax burden would actually position me to build wealth faster, though I was more excited about the professional challenge than the monetary benefits. Ryan made perhaps the most dramatic change. After our fourth therapy session, he listed his beloved Ducati for sale. "Are you sure about this?" I asked when he told me his decision. "You've wanted that bike for years." The bike was an impulse purchase based on old patterns, he explained with newfound self-awareness. "I'm using half the money to pay off my credit cards and investing the rest in starting my real estate business." Amber's transformation was subtler but equally meaningful. She began documenting her existing wardrobe on a digital platform, challenging herself to create 30 unique outfits without buying anything new. "My therapist calls it shopping my closet," she explained during a sisterly lunch date. "It's helping me appreciate what I already have instead of constantly craving more." 3 months after the credit card revelation, Dad called a family meeting at their house. As we gathered around the dining table, he slid a folder toward the center. "What's this?" I asked, opening it to find documentation for a charitable foundation. "The Reynolds Family Financial Literacy Fund," he announced proudly. "We've endowed it with $50,000 from the inheritance." Mom squeezed his hand supportively. "The fund will provide workshops and one-on-one coaching for families struggling with money management." "This is incredible," I said, genuinely moved by their initiative. "It's our way of transforming our financial mistakes into something positive," Dad explained. "And we'd like all 3 of you to serve on the advisory board, each bringing your unique perspective on money challenges." As I looked around at my family, I realized how far we'd come since that confrontational Sunday when I'd stormed into their living room demanding my credit card. The dummy gold card that had sparked our crisis now sat framed on my parents' wall, a whimsical reminder of how misunderstandings can sometimes lead to unexpected growth. "I've been thinking about what this whole experience has taught me," I shared as we celebrated with dessert. "I've always approached money as purely mathematical, all about numbers and logic. But these past months have shown me that our financial behaviors are deeply emotional, rooted in our earliest experiences and most vulnerable insecurities." "That's profound, Morgan," Ryan said with sincerity. "Financial literacy isn't just about understanding compound interest or building emergency funds," I continued. "It's about recognizing how our emotional relationships with money drive our decisions, for better or worse. And how secrecy around money can damage relationships," Amber added, "even when the intentions are good." Mom nodded thoughtfully. "I've learned that financial independence isn't just about having enough money. It's about having healthy attitudes toward what that money represents." For me, Dad concluded, the biggest lesson was that no inheritance or windfall can substitute for honest communication. We nearly destroyed our family trying to create a financial surprise, when what we all really needed was transparency and truth. As our gathering wound down, I found myself feeling genuinely grateful for the dummy credit card mix-up. Without that catalyst, we might have continued our dysfunctional patterns indefinitely, keeping secrets and making assumptions that slowly eroded our family bonds. The vacation to Hawaii still happened, though we rescheduled it to accommodate my move to Seattle. Those 10 days on Maui's beaches provided time for healing, laughter, and creating new family memories untainted by financial deception. We even took a family photo holding the framed dummy credit card, all of us wearing matching Hawaiian shirts and genuine smiles. Standing now at the threshold of my new life in Seattle, I understand that true financial wisdom isn't just about managing money effectively. It's about recognizing how our emotional histories shape our financial decisions, communicating honestly about our needs and fears, and being willing to examine the unconscious beliefs that drive our behavior. The gold credit card still sits in my wallet, rarely used, but serving as a subtle reminder of what truly matters. Money comes and goes, but the trust we build through honesty and understanding is the real currency of lasting relationships. Have you ever experienced a financial misunderstanding that led to unexpected personal growth? Share your story in the comments below. If this tale of family financial drama resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more life lessons from my financial journey. Remember, sometimes our biggest mistakes become our most valuable teachers. And even a dummy credit card can lead to very real wisdom. Thank you for listening, and may your own financial journey be filled with both prosperity and authenticity.